Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Future Friday. Today we're gonna take a look at the hot topic of this year, Hyperloop. So let's dive right into it. So question comes to the mind, who started this? Elon Musk. So what was the idea? What was the grand plan? The idea was very simple. They're gonna give you fast travel, as in faster than aircraft, cheaper than bus fare. That was the whole idea. Fast and cheap transport. They initially quoted 5 times cheaper. Now you have to understand it. This is where it became a scam. Elon Musk in 2012 he interviewed a reporter and then he pitched this idea. However, the idea was created by this guy, and this is Robert Goddard. He's the father of rocketry. Basically, he's called the initiator of space race. Basically, if he didn't do his job, we wouldn't have any rockets or satellites. So, and he also proposed the idea of vacuum train, not in exact same sense, but Elon Musk did not made any mention of that. And so suffice to say that that's when your spider sense should start tingling. So how does he supposed to do this? Like, give you faster than air travel and cheaper than bus. So the whole idea is a merger of two technologies. The two technologies in question is MAGLEV and vacuum trains. Now MAGLEV is a quite old technology, known very well, and the whole idea is that you're gonna have a MAGLEV in a vacuum. So, but be mindful, there are some old designs that used to have air in front of it and has turbine design and all that. That design was thrown out instantaneously because it was acting like a hovercraft, and anybody who knows that military has giant hovercrafts are not efficient, because to fight gravity you end up spending so much energy, is pointless. Wheels become cheaper again. So that idea was thrown out. So if you see any Hyperloop design and concept work that has big turbine in front, yeah, those are outdated. That should tell you, like, even the designs are not up to date. That should tell you everything you need to know. So let's in principle everything sounds okay, like it's a MAGLEV, it's a known technology. Vacuum trains, how hard that can be. So what's the issue? So I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it can be done. If you put enough money, time, energy, it can be done. Physics is not at the other end saying like, yo, you cannot do this. It can be done. However, the scam part, why I'm calling it a scam, is the price part, where they are saying it's gonna be cheap. Heck, cheap, screw that. Like high-speed trains are not cheap. Like Shinshan, the bullet train of Japan, it cost almost $100 to $150 per ticket. So it's not cheap. Neither the railway travel that is in Europe is cheap. So high-speed train is not cheap, and this guy is gonna bring that cost down while traveling faster than aircraft. Yeah, that's the part of scam part. And you have to understand, this guy has a company that build electric cars, electric trucks, spaceship that can go to Mars, and somehow he's not building this own thing. That was like, I'm like, okay bro, that was the for me final nail in the coffin is, if you can build BFR, big Falcon rocket, and you can't build this, like seriously. And he's like, I'm gonna open source this design. Even the Tesla is open source, yet somehow he's still building it. So this is, at this point, pieces started to fall together as a scam. And to give you an idea what things can be done but should not be done because of cost reason, I am giving you 2 examples. Space Shuttle, this was the worst spacecraft ever made, the most expensive and the most deadly. And this is Concorde, which was more successful. Like it did not fail miserably, but there is a reason we no longer travel at supersonic speed. The fuel consumption, basically the energy cost of this thing was so high. Like there is a reason you don't see them flying. Like it worked, both of these things worked, but you don't see them anymore. Why? That's the whole point. It can be done, but it's not worth doing it because of cost. So let's dive right into it. So MAGLEV, I said the MAGLEV is the core aspect of this technology. So the idea is quite old. Idea is 100 years old. What does that idea is? Basically, you take a motor and you have AC induction motor, where you have a stator and you have a rotor. Rotor rotates. So you take the stator and you open it up like this. That's it. Nothing fancy about that. It's called linear accelerators or linear motors basically, and there is no spinning in it. It's just to have a plate and you have another plate moving on top of it. That's the idea of MAGLEV. Now, first maglev idea was patented. Like, yes, there is patent on this shit. It's 1905. First patent was granted on this topic by Alfred Zinn. That's a German name, I can't pronounce it. And you have to understand, even though maglev has no friction from wheels, it still has friction from air. So you are removing a lot of wheels, noise and all that, yes, but you're not removing air. So it still has a lot of very high energy cost. Now, Japan is the only country that has a network of maglev and high speed network that are compared in this apple to apple comparison, because if I compare Germany to Japan, it won't be a fair comparison. So because they are operating in both of them, I'll give you some statistics from their point of view. So their maglev train that you can see in this picture, that runs at 500 kilometers per hour, very nice speed, but it takes 100 watt-hour per seat per kilometer. Now don't go deep into it, just pay attention to the number. It takes 100 watt. They have Shinshan, that is the bullet train, and it also operates as the same high-speed network train. It's traveling at 300 km per hour, and these are average speed, like this is the watts they are trying to maintain, but it takes 29 watt-hour per kilometer. So understand the difference, how far you have jumped. You went from, let's say, 30 to 100, but you did not went in speed 3 times up. You only went basically 1.5 times. So this is a very crucial part about maglev. Even though you can make it cheap, the energy cost is so high that you have to pay for it. Like, many people have this wrong delusional idea that when you have electric trains, it does not have a cost. Like, it still has a cost. You're still burning coal, you're still taking power from nuclear power plant, or still taking from any source that you can get. It's not free. The only thing is you are doing a much more inefficient delivery, and this is a very crucial part for this sort of thing. So as you can see, the power went 3 times, but the speed did not went up 3 times. And the reason why maglev, even though a 100-year-old idea, and as you can see in this picture, the first commercial maglev was introduced in 1984. So yeah, this is an old technology. And the reason why it's not catching on, even though it can do very crazy speeds, the world record is set by this train is around 600 kilometers per hour. So yeah, it's fast. Let's just say it's fastest track travel that is possible. The reason for that is cost per kilometer. Now this is very crucial part for when you are talking about public transit. It's not like an expensive car that you can drive on a normal roadway. You have to consider the cost of the track that you are building. So cheap tracks like normal American tracks can cost upwards of $15 to $30 per kilometer. Like, of course the cost is very high, but over hundreds of kilometers. So now, and high-speed train networks cost around $70 million per kilometer. Yes, it does go that high. Outside of that, now you might be like, okay, $70 million per kilometer, how high this can be? 70 million per kilometer to $130 million per kilometer, and it piles up. So the longer network you make it, the more expensive it will become. So suffice to say, there is a reason why it never caught on. And this is when I like the first white paper published about the Hyperloop network from Los Angeles and all that. The proposed price was around $8 billion, and I'm like, what? That's the cost of normal metro networks. Heck, even metros are more expensive than that. How the heck is gonna make a revolutionary thing which was like cheaper than that? So practically speaking, Japan is the only country that is actually investing in maglev network. Everybody else is like, the price to performance ratio is just not worth it. So they started to make a track, like how they have bullet train network, they are making a maglev train network of around 300 kilometers of track. The total cost, given the fact that they are the only company that actually knows how to build it, operate it, and they've been doing it for around 30 years. So suffice to say, they know what they are doing. Their cost is around $80 billion. So yeah, let that sink in. They took $80 billion. Now, of course, there is a reason why it's so damn high. It's because they have to drill through a lot of mountains. And that's compulsory, otherwise you can't bank at high speed. So this is the reason why maglevs don't catch on. Like, it's old technology, we can do it, we've been doing it. It's just pointlessly expensive. The capital investment will be so high, the ticket price will become idiotically absurd. The current ticket price of bullet trains are already as almost matching an aircraft, Now you're talking about making that too high, and it cannot travel as fast as a plane. So that's why maglev, you don't see maglev everywhere. These are the core reasons. Capital investment is too high because of dollar per kilometer, and it's not cheap to run. It's like, just because you are not seeing the engine, mileage and all that, doesn't mean it's not running on energy. It's still taking energy from coal, or it's still taking energy from hydropower dam, which you have to divert from. Instead of going to the city, it has to eat this up. So suffice to say, that's why you don't see maglev everywhere. Now we come to the vacuum tunnel part. Now the reason why you want to put a maglev in a vacuum tunnel, it will allow higher speed even with the same energy content. Let's say you put the same sunshine, if you put it in a vacuum, of course it will go much faster, and it also reduces power consumption. So those are awesome. Then what's the side effect? Yeah, ideally you would want this tunnel to be underground. Why? Well, if you don't do it underground, you will have what's called thermal expansion, where the pipes will expand and contract. Now it's a problem with rail also, but it can have gaps in it. Vacuum tube cannot have gap with it. And for all of those, no, it's a low pressure, no, it's vacuum. The reason why they call it low pressure is because you can't, tangibly speaking, make it absolute vacuum. So there will always be some atmosphere. And read the document. It's like altitude of 1 lakh feet or something like higher than that. Basically higher than commercial airline, where you cannot breathe. It's almost space. They just know that you can't make a tube 100% vacuum, so they're calling it low pressure. Now you can't deal with thermal expansion as easily as you deal with railways, bridges and things like that, because, well, you have to have a seal. So it's not unsolvable, but it will make your tracks per kilometer cost even higher. Now it takes a lot of power to run the vacuum. Like here's the deal, for ask any of your friend who deal with physics or chemistry, they might have vacuum pumps in their lab, or school also have lab. It takes a lot of power to just create a vacuum. To give you an idea, this is the test track, the Elon Musk 1 mile long track. That took half an hour to make a vacuum, and that's not even full scale. So it has much less volume than any vacuum chamber. The biggest vacuum chamber is rated as second biggest. The first biggest is Large Hadron Collider. So suffice to say, it takes a lot of energy. To make a vacuum. And so not only you are losing energy while making the vacuum, you also have to maintain it. It's not like you made a vacuum, it will be permanently vacuum. And this is the part where I'm like, all the presentation, all the white papers, they are missing. It's like, it needs freaking airlock. Where is the airlock? Like, all they show is like, there is a hyperloop and it comes to the, it cannot do like that. There has to be like, it has to go to a dock, it has to seal the vacuum so the whole atmosphere does not go inside it. Then it has to like do step by step, otherwise it will explode. Literally it will like, of course it won't explode, it's just, it will get expanded. So you need airlocks, and airlocks are not cheap, and not to mention they also leak. Like, you cannot have 100% perfect airlocks. So this airlock part is completely removed in everything. And the one thing that people don't understand properly is the vacuum is very dangerous. This is a rail car. This is what happens when a rail car ends up with a vacuum in it. Now, as you can see, these are not made with thin metal. They are made of quite thick metal and designed to withstand collisions. However, vacuum is very powerful, and the bigger the chamber, the more powerful vacuum will become. Now, can we design things that can handle this? Yes, very easily. Submarines are designed to handle this sort of pressure. Here's the deal. I do not think I need to tell you the cost of submarines metal. Like, it's idiotically expensive. And this is where I keep coming back to. It's not that it cannot be done, it's just the cost of it will be so high. And the fact that nobody is showing you airlocks in the presentations, the proposed designs, it's just Hyperloop just comes out and like, no, you need airlocks for that. So suffice to say, it's idiotically expensive at the maglev stage. Now you have added something that is 10 times more expensive. And if you do it underground, tunnels are idiotically expensive on top of that. So yeah, at this time you are realizing you are reaching around $500 to $600 million per kilometer. I'm not exaggerating. It literally, some tunnels actually have that kind of cost. And they also need a third tunnel. You'll have one up line, one down line. You will have one service tunnel line, just in case, to rescue them. And again, because of the vacuum, you can't just, go in from each other. So And the pods that are like, you know, the images, that pods are the most common images that you're gonna get about that. They're gonna be claustrophobic on a level that most people don't realize it. The first pods are like shown like you are inside a F1 cockpit, but you can see outside. In Hyperloop, you cannot see outside. That's a very, very big difference to your psychology. Now, of course, not everybody is susceptible. Maybe only 1% people are, maybe 10% are. But it is a point that you have to take into consideration when you are building a public transit. Second, it needs to carry its own oxygen. Even at low pressure, it cannot breathe. Like the low pressure that they are saying is so low that the aircraft that can handle that altitude needs liquid oxygen. Military aircraft generally take liquid oxygen with them for breathing purpose. Even some commercial aircraft, private aircrafts could do that. Generally, it's not advised for commercial use, but for military use, almost all military aircraft have the capacity to carry liquid oxygen. So this part is also removed from all the discussion. It's like, how the heck people are gonna breathe in it? It's like, people just gonna breathe. No, but like when plane suffers any critical loss of pressure, they can drop the plane to 10,000 feet and people can breathe. You can't do anything like that. So it has to carry its own oxygen. And you might say, okay, the journey is very small, let's say 20-30 minutes. Here's you are still traveling a long distance and you still have to have contingency. What if the power failure happens while you are in the transit? You have to have it. You cannot be like, okay, see, like if it works, doesn't work, you are dead. That's not acceptable for public transit. Of course, it's acceptable for rocket travel, but not for public transit. And the pods that they're gonna build is not gonna last long because of this thermal pressure expansion. This is the core reason why aircrafts are retired very quickly. Like even though you might see an aircraft that looks completely intact, all you will be like, okay, let's just, you know, bolt on some new engines and it will be good to go. No, the reason is when the plane is at the sea level, basically at airport, it has pressure balance. Like inside pressure is same as the outside pressure. However, when it's climbing up, it does not have the same outside pressure, and the inside pressure is also not at the sea level. The aircraft generally try to keep it at 30%, not 30%, basically they're trying to give you an altitude of around 10,000 feet, so you can easily breathe, but it's not, that's why your ear can tell. Like if they were giving you 100% same PSI on the sea level, your ears would not hurt. Like that's the reason why people with sensitive ear can sense it, because pressure did drop. Like of course it did not drop to, like, you know, full zero, but it dropped enough that you can detect it. And this makes the metal expand and contract, This causes what's called metal fatigue. Now you're like, okay, let's build with carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is not cheap. Sinchan is built with aluminum, or TGB is built with aluminum, ice trains are built with aluminum. There is a reason why you use that. If you're building hundreds of them, you need to build them out of cheap material. And even carbon fiber has a limit. It's not gonna expand and contract forever. It will shatter. And not to mention, the expansion and contraction will make this expansion and contraction look easy. Why? Because this is only, the pressure difference here is very, it's there, but it's like going from 15 psi to 5 psi. On the vacuum train, it's going from 15 psi at the sea level to 0 psi. So understand, the expansion and contraction will wear down the pods very quickly. So it won't be like government invested in a pod and pod's gonna run for, generally you want them to run for at least 2 to 3 decades. Yeah, they're gonna be retiring it in 5-6 years, if lucky. So what was the point of me making this sort of video? I want you to understand all the companies that you see, they are taking part in that pod competition. They are using the Hyperloop system as a test bed. Like let's say you want to test your cooling system that you will employ in satellites or things like that. Where you're gonna get the vacuum chamber? This guy is providing you vacuum chamber. So you're like, okay, let's test it. So all the technology that the company that they are testing, and they flat out tell you, we are testing our, you know, power delivery system, we are testing our MAGLEV system, we are testing that. That's why so many companies are putting their money in. Then they don't intend to build a, you know, final product. They are just testing their products out. If it works, it works. It doesn't work, doesn't work. Like for them, it's a test. And those who are not paying for it, like in other places, like where companies are being called upon, like let's say government is like hiring them to like build that, they're getting paid, so they don't care whether it works or doesn't work. So please don't jump on the, oh, so many companies have two reasons: A, profit; B, using it as a test bed. Test bed, you know, like suffice to say, is quite powerful, especially if you want to test things in vacuum. Vacuum is not something that every Tom, Dick and Harry can create. So that's the reason why so many companies are interested in. And it's not that it cannot build, it's just cost trillions of dollars. trillions. And to give you some perspective of how big a trillion is, entire USA's GDP is around 15 trillion, 14 to 15 trillion. So let that sink in. That's how expensive this is gonna be if it ever comes to the market. So all I want of you guys is don't jump on the hype train. So don't, if see like tracks like this, oh yeah, India is gonna get Hyperloop, or this is gonna be the USA Hyperloop network. Yeah, no, it's not happening. The cost will be so damn high that if some poor soul or senator or some retard guy actually funded this, they're gonna bang their head in the stone quite soon after that, because running cost of these things are so high, not to mention the capital cost is also so high. At the end it will be so high that people won't travel on it. And you have to understand, I have never seen this kind of publicity on something that supposed to carry people but hasn't carried even one people, not even a single person has traveled. Like you have the amount of people's hope on this is surprisingly misplaced. Like, let people travel on this. Let somebody actually go there, somebody actually figure out, oh, how I'm gonna breathe, how we gonna have emergency exit procedures. Don't be like, okay, just Hyperloop, fast travel. There's a cost to it, and please be mindful. There are scenarios where, like in my own country, India, they built a metro network in a station, in a city. It became white elephant. Basically, in engineering, white elephant means you can't pay for it. Why? Because there was low public demand for it. Hyperloop costs so much that you have to sell so many tickets, and not to mention you can't sell that many tickets because it's not a train, it's pods. Each pods are traveling. It's not train like Indian train can easily carry 800 to 900 passengers. Yes, it is that high, almost 1000 passengers is easy. So you can't expect to travel that many people in one pod, obviously. And if you have multiple pods, of course you have delay also. So with time and the low capacity, ticket price will go up. So at the end, you are living in a point where per head ticket is roughly around $50,000. So yeah, it's not happening. And I please urge you to stop the hype. If you don't, you will pay for it, because at the end, the government are gonna pay for it, and they're gonna pay it from your tax money. So be mindful of this. So that was my presentation. Hope you guys liked it or learned from it. In that case, please like. If you didn't, dislike, leave a comment and subscribe. Press the bell icon to be notified, since I make video every day. And thanks for watching.